Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV, and it is Wednesday, November 26th, 2025. I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel on You Are Free TV. I'll jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. Okay, everyone, I'm so glad to be back with you. Sorry I wasn't here more this week, but that's what's going on this week. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Of course, we have the awful tragedy of the attempted assassination of two National Guardsmen, of multiple more. I believe there was four that were together. That just happened in DC. I'm going to jump into that in a moment. I start by saying thank you on this channel. Thank you so much for supporting it. Thank you to Kind Eyes for joining up in the monthly support with your generous monthly donation. That is so appreciated. And your messages, everyone's messages, your messages are so appreciated to keep me going, and it really makes a difference. And I will plug for my fantastic sponsor, C60 Evo, c60evo.com/YAFTV. And there's just massive, massive sales going on here. And I'll get into it more at the end of the video, but incredible Black Friday, whatever. They're just sales for the holidays, for Christmas. And basically buy 6 bottles, get 40% off, just incredible stuff, combos, etc. But you have to use my landing page to get those sales, c60evo.com/YAFTV. Okay. So we're in the midst of a major tragedy here. And what's so interesting about this at the time that I'm doing this video, which is about 3.5 hours after the shooting of these two National Guardsmen from West Virginia occurred, is we're getting very strange things out of Governor Morrissey of West Virginia, who literally about an hour or so after the shooting came out with social media posts saying that the two guardsmen were deceased. And we're praying for them and their families, especially here right before Thanksgiving. Not especially for the prayers, but it's just, again, targeted assault on specific days to, of course, affect the consciousness of the nation, right? And especially after the seditious six and everything going on there, where we had Alyssa Slotkin specifically come out and say, for instance, ex-CIA run by Brennan, a Brennan acolyte, coming out and saying, there's concern that National Guardsmen will open fire on American citizens. So this is all happening, and we're hoping that it will lead to Trump declaring the Insurrection Act, because it is beyond time. I'll be getting into that. But this interesting thing of, we have the West Virginia Governor Morrissey coming out and saying they are deceased. Now we're praying that isn't the case, because then he came and walked it back, saying there's conflicting information coming out. So we're praying they're still alive, and if I find out as this video is going, I will let you know. And so this very interesting situation of, the shooter, no information yet. But, people are like, it's this person, it's that, it's whatever. The USA has been occupied by globalist forces who have been funding everything that has come on to, of course, destroy and take over this country in a long rolling coup that is ramping up right now. When we saw James Comey come out after his temporary dismissal of his case, which won't last for long, James Comey, what did he do? He always does these popular media messages where he comes out with things that remind me of like Red Dawn, like the chairs against the wall. He always comes out and refers to these various things. And one thing he did 2 days ago after his case was dismissed is he came and said, my parents always said to me, every morning when we were waking up, they'd come and lift the shades and they would say, rise and shine, and show the world what you're made of. And I believe these are specific messages. I believe that James Comey did them also with his weird Taylor Swift post. And of course, he did the 8647 that got him rolled up by the Secret Service. Is he flipping? Is he not? What's going on? Well, rise and shine for those of us my age, or hopefully growing up in a Christian household. You would have, it was always rise and shine and give God your glory, glory, rise and shine and give God your glory, glory. But no, not with communist Comey, which he was an avowed communist until Carter came along, and he voted for Carter, and he of course, Carter put in the SES and the machinations of the deep state coming to fruition with unprecedented power, right? Just as we have Brennan acting like Allen Dulles after JFK was assassinated, and he continued to operate as the head of the CIA after he was no longer in power. Brennan is that person, and we're seeing so much coming in here we're on the precipice of the massive election steal apparatus that was born in Venezuela, okay, coming from the CCP, coming from the deep state, the Pilgrim Society, out of course, the city of London, and organizing the control of elections worldwide. And the information coming out is so dire and so intense that it's ready to burst onto the world finally, right, after all this time. And so it's very important and very exciting, except that it means that we're also ramping up the attacks. And the seditious six, of course, Mark Kelly still able to be rolled up in to be court-martialed and to go into a military trial, a JAG trial, is so important. And of course, Alyssa Slotkin, who specifically referenced the National Guard, all of them, okay, should be arrested for inciting sedition. And of course, sedition is the doing actions that incite a revolt against the government. It's different than treason, which is, of course, working with foreign governments, but that's all in there and is going to be coming out. So we're in this precipice moment, and over Thanksgiving, Trump could, I pray that he addresses the nation and discusses the dire situation that we're in as it's ramping up right now. But he also can do during the recess over Thanksgiving holidays is he can put in he can do recess appointments, and you can get Bridge Colby's people in there, his assistants that he absolutely needs to really, really help Hegseth, who just announced, oh, we're putting 500 more National Guard. I believe only 160 of the National Guard had renewed their contracts to be willing to stay in DC after the time period had ended recently. And he's saying we're bringing 500 more National Guard to DC. How about 10,000? Okay, how about you go Kennedy style? Okay, or Abe Lincoln would be even better, but go Kennedy style, where he brought in tens of thousands of people when there was the integration that happened during his presidency, not issue. How about we go a little more severe? Okay, this continuing to act woke, okay, and a supposedly de-woke time period is over, and contrary to mainstream media, contrary to social media, contrary to all that, 85% plus, I would believe, of the American people are fully behind Trump and his administration and going to rout out this evil once and for all. And so as we start to look at what's coming down with huge reveals, and there could even be an action against Venezuela over the weekend, we're seeing Dan Caine, of course, he's in charge of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He is a Raisin Caine, right? He's gone down to Puerto Rico to take part in what could break out any time as operations against Venezuela. And all of the election steal originated in Venezuela, the creation of Smartmatic, and as it plays into the 2020 election steal, I want to remind people of something I reported, I think, a month ago, that John Brennan, ex-CIA chief, and of course Muslim Brotherhood member, convert to Islam, dual citizen of Ireland, where the Muslims are devastating Ireland. Brennan was co-owner of the building in Serbia where the servers were moved before the 2020 election, moved from Venezuela to Serbia. And John Brennan co-owned that building where they were housed. Okay. And so we're finding out, and have known a lot of it, but more coming out to show how the software, that it was Huawei servers that were in Serbia, that the software was not made in Taiwan. It was labeled as made in Taiwan. It's made by the CCP, the software in the Smartmatic machines. And we're seeing, of course, this huge case going down in the Southern District of Florida to do with the Smartmatic fraud. But when we look at vendor, is it vendor 6? Let me see, put on the glasses here and get down to business. But vendor, let's see, vendor 6, I believe, is who's named in the Smartmatic case. Well, they are specifically, let me see, sorry about this, or vendor A, excuse me, vendor A in the Smartmatic fraud case that's going on in the Southern District of Florida right now is, of course, the supposed Taiwanese person connected with the actual software that runs in all these machines. It's coming out hugely. I've linked below Lara Logan's great interview with Greg Burtson and the author of Stolen, about the election, that details everything to do with what's coming out on the election. And what we're seeing here is that 72 elections stolen by the Smartmatic software, starting with Chavez in Venezuela, okay, the destruction of Venezuela then, and then subsequent elections all throughout Latin and South America being stolen by this Smartmatic system that then was bought up by Sequoia, that then ran into DOMINION up in Canada out of Toronto, and all of it's there. I mean, we've been talking about this forever, but it's all there. And even Susie Wiles has flipped to back, going after the huge election fraud steal, the coup, the treason. That's the foreign government, okay? When it gets to who are your partners, when it goes from sedition to Venezuela, that becomes treason, as well as all the other countries. However, so many Congress people on the dole out of Venezuela, and that's part of what's going to be coming out. And to me, one thing that really comes to my mind is this NDAA. I've been calling, and I've been asking you to call the Senate and the House, 202-224-3121 for the Senate, 2321 for Thune, 202-225 for the House, and 2777 for Johnson. Those are linked below. But our Congress is so captured. And when you see Tom Cotton and all these people, well, they're about to end the Ukraine war. Russia won, doy. While that's going down and you're having J.D. Vance getting in, taking a much more clear role there, and you're getting Driscoll, Secretary of the Army, Kellogg has been rolled out finally after all of his leaking, all of his sabotage. Lindsey Graham and him, best buds, and all of them, right? That Blumenthal, that have an apartment that we pay for taxpayer dollars still in Ukraine, in Kiev. Maybe it's been blown up now because Russia's still going full bore as this goes along. We pray for the poor Ukrainians that are dealing with this. But we have Witkoff going to Moscow, possibly over the weekend, maybe into next week, directly to talk with Putin, okay? And we have Secretary of the Army Driscoll going in to talk specifically with the Russian military about what's coming. So, of course, Russia's like, no, no security guarantees will be allowed. That's not going to happen. We won't let that happen. And other things, like one thing we're hearing is the oligarchs and the military out of Ukraine, all the higher-ups that are Zelensky's acolytes, but also he's, on his way out. They want to put in um, what is his name, Zaluzhny. Okay, it's kind of like, how Maduro trying to replace him with his intelligence chief, right, would be the same as putting Zaluzhny in to take over from Zelensky. These intelligent CIA, MI6, Pilgrim Society operatives just carrying along the same thing. And so when I said earlier that you've got Vance bringing in Driscoll, you've got all kinds of push here to just, to move away from NATO's demands, move away from the EU cabals, who has no cards except for their massive banking cartel out of the City of London and the royals out of course, the EU. They've got nothing else. Okay. And Germany's on the verge of bankruptcy, all their corporations going bankrupt, every state in Germany going bankrupt. They're in dire straits. So we have this NDAA, and one of the things, along with the AI moratorium, when I was just mentioning earlier, that we need to be calling about is this NDAA. Yes, we need to cancel the AI moratorium that steals the rights of states to protect themselves and make their own laws regarding AI. However, the NDAA is also super uber just the same military money going to the same people it's always gone, as Colby and Hegseth and others are trying to shift. And we're seeing with Operation Southern Spear, Dan Caine, General Dan Caine down in Puerto Rico. They're hovering in the Caribbean because Cuba is the huge central hub here between the CCP, the election stealing, the gangs, all of it. And of course, 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela with the USS Gerald Ford and this imminent action that's going to go down. And so with the NDAA, the problem here with it's almost $1 trillion, okay, to fund the military, right, with all this pork, the AI moratorium, Ted Cruz, bringing it back after he was defeated and voted against it last March, right, bringing it back again. Well, the NDAA is super funding the situation of keeping the military with all of its contracts and all of that huge money and of all of the paid off Congress people and lobbyists and senators is still the same thing of funding NATO, funding Europe, funding CENTCOM, funding the Middle East crap, all of the stuff that we need to take all that money away from and stop paying our taxes to do this crap. Okay, all of that stuff that doesn't do anything to protect the United States, Bridge Colby and Hegseth and others shifting, okay, towards the Western Hemisphere, towards China and Asia. China is making huge threats against Japan right now. Japan's economy kind of in a free fall. They had to put 250 billion stimulus into the economy. And China's coming out, CCP telling their citizens don't travel to Japan, which is kind of one of their hugest tourism things is Chinese, and also saying we're going to take the islands, Japanese islands that, back when, 1,000 years ago, belonged to China. All these threats going on. And so the NDAA is filled with all this crap that wants to take our almost $1 trillion of taxpayer money and keep funding this NATO European Pilgrim Society, City of London focus, CIA, all of that, okay, instead of reorienting the military. So if Trump could do anything over the weekend to pause and reconfigure the NDAA, that would be massive. A long shot, I know, but it is important to talk about it and talk about what's going on with this money. And so as we look at this and we look at all that's going down, I wanted to just kind of talk about a couple things. When we look at this, whoever it was it like a Ziklag that George Webb keeps talking about, these Ukrainian mercenaries, Alexander Vindman, when I'm talking about the DC shooter today, Alexander Vindman was, of course, told that he is under investigation. He must come and testify before the House, I believe. Of course, it's time to primary Jim Jordan. Okay, Jim Jordan is one of the worst people, as well as Fire Ratcliffe and just all of these deep staters running out the clock, wasting our time. However, Vindman, he's called before the House. He says, oh, this is baloney, blah, blah, blah. Alexander Vindman, Alexei Vindman, the Ukrainian with his twin brother, who all they had this whole situation. Okay, Alex Vindman, who was, you know, on the call, right, with Trump, with the original call with Zelensky, and all of this that started the impeachment and all of this way back, right, in 2017. And so Vindman, of course, had this company called Trident, where he was getting tons of, and speaking of the NDAA, getting government contracts for this operation in Ukraine that was like a central, a central place for distribution of the weapons, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said earlier and didn't finish, the situation with Zelensky is, of course, we have that oligarch, is it, it starts with an M. I don't have his name. He's one of the other oligarchs who fled to Israel recently. He's the one with the gold, solid gold toilet, billions and billions of dollars stolen by Zelensky and his fellows. And one of the other things I believe that Russia is a bit holding out on is this point that all of these oligarchs and military and just people at the top who've been receiving and stealing all of our money get pardon. They get protection. Okay, they get amnesty and get to go leave Ukraine and go live in Miami or go where they go, Cyprus, etc., Israel, and that they get to be walk away in the devastation that is Ukraine. And so as we look at all this and we see Vindman being called up around Trident and a major trafficking hub of weapons, as we look at the Ziklag thing that I was bringing up that George Webb always reports on as this Ukrainian-based mercenary army, whether it is the murder of Charlie Kirk, and now it just happened in DC, just all of it, back to Ryan Ruth, back to Crooks, again, Bongino and Patel, there's nothing else to see here, Crooks, this young little skinny, malnutritioned person operated alone in Butler. I don't know, was Invent Strategies running that thing too, but I always allude back to that because I can't help it. But we'll see what goes on with this shooter. But one thing I did want to mention, which is interesting, that came out today out of Gateway Pundit, is we get DeCarlos Brown, the man who murdered the Ukrainian woman. And I've always found it really interesting that this Ukrainian woman was murdered on this train. And it pings my gut. It pings my gut. Why her? And was this a targeted assassination? Irina Zarutska. And so DeCarlos Brown, the man who murdered her, new footage came out and Gateway Pundit put it up, and I linked it below. In January of 2025, because we know this guy keeps saying there's something man-made in my brain that's controlling me, controlling what I do. And in January of this year, he called 911 2 times on different occasions to alert them that something man-made has been either injected or somehow is inside of his body and is mind controlling him. And so I wanted to mention that and just to remind people as we look at the Seditious Six calling on people to resist their orders in the military, how many of these players have something injected to them that is controlling their minds, right? And how much this voice to skull and everything else, this targeting and using of mind-controlled assassins will play out in these days and months to come in this imminently breaking kind of civil war situation, right? Because we have heroes on our side that have been working so hard as the election steal. It's 72 countries, okay, have stolen elections, not only the 2020 election. And Dan Ratcliffe should be fired immediately over this Thanksgiving weekend. I believe the Insurrection Act should be called. I believe Trump should address the nation and talk about the domestic threat that is happening, the coup, global forces that are occupying and creating a coup in this country. And I just saw breaking news here that it looks like the person who shot the National Guard members is an Afghan national. Okay, an Afghan national. Again, John Brennan, and he, of course, was a station chief in Afghanistan. Everything to do with the whole debacle of Afghanistan. And John Brennan, of course, is Alyssa Slotkin is an acolyte. We have Spanberger now in Virginia as governor, stole an election for entertainment purposes only, an acolyte. She trained or taught people at the one Saudi Arabian training school in DC, right outside in Virginia, very close to where she lives now. So an Afghan national, it's looking like, is the shooter of the two National Guards members. Still no defining report on if they are still alive or not. And so this is, I heard Jack Posobiec make this reference to this military term called DARVO, and this is divert, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. And this is where, of course, they start to blame the National Guard. You already had Al Sharpton come out on like MSM Now or MS Now or whatever the heck it's called, or NBC, one of these fake news channels, and say, bought off grifting Al Sharpton, saying that he blames Trump that the National Guard were put in harm's way, okay, from a gunman that just decided to shoot them, right? And this is how they do it, okay? It's just the same reversals upon reversals. It's the kitty litter box syndrome of the deep state of revealing and recovering, and just reversals upon reversals. And so we'll be seeing that, I'm sure, over the weekend, and we're just praying that they are still alive, the two National Guards people. And it was an Afghan male, or that's what they're saying here, according to Mullins. Mullins has been key also in the reports to do with getting out the election steal information out of Venezuela. And so he really is a national hero. And so moving on from there, I'm going to cover a few things here as we sort of wind down. I think I will talk more about the situation of, Emerald Robinson is doing a great job revealing everything that's coming out to do with everything being known and going kind of live soon, hopefully out of the Trump administration, to do with the election steals and everyone involved. And so what she had to say is that Susie Wiles has been on the side of getting this election steal information out, which I think is important to point out. And you can go to emerald.tv for her Substack. And of course, Emerald Robinson she's on the short list of the people they will, of course, try to indict and throw in jail, covering this since the get-go. And she's on Lindell TV also. I believe she has a daily show there. But basically, what she is saying is that Elon Musk last year in November, when he attended in October, that it was presented to him, and Patrick Byrne, who I've been talking about in a couple of videos recently, and we all know that he's been a big hero in all of this. He's put his huge treasure behind this, something like $80 million, to expose this massive planet-wide election steal apparatus of the cartel Babylon. Well, he had squirreled out these Venezuelan government whistleblowers who had all the goods on Smartmatic, everything about where it came from, how it's operating, etc. He's funded them. He was the one that was able to smuggle them out of Venezuela, paying for everything. They pray for their protection because they are doing a huge service to the entire world to be able to come out and explain all of this. But basically, last year, before the election, we had Elon Musk given the information. He put it through an AI engine, okay, that had to do with this huge PowerPoint that the Venezuelan whistleblowers had put together. And it came out perfectly showing that this is what's happened. Smartmatic software created in 2004, the stealing of the election, well, early 2000s, and then Chavez gets in, and then they create it to go certainly across South America and then abroad and up, of course, into the United States and beyond. And, every election since has not been valid. And except for possibly the 2016, where the overwhelming support for Trump, we saw it again with Maduro in this last election. They couldn't, with Trump won in 2016, and Hillary just 100% knew she was going to win because of the machine steal. Well, same thing here in Maduro thought so too, but he lost the election, but declared that he won anyway, shut down all the apparatus, all the media, declared a victory, something like 51% to 49, when it was quite the opposite. And so as we look at this and we see that this is going on and that these people are not even really in witness protection, that it's a very guarded situation of these whistleblowers. And this also ties into the Southern District of Florida investigation to do with Smartmatic and the fraud coming out of the Philippines and et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's one thing, okay? But it's going much larger than that. And so we'll see over the weekend if Venezuela strikes do begin. I believe it could, because Trump tends to operate that way, and we shall see. That's interesting. Yeah, I'll get to that maybe in next. We're seeing the Olympic torch setting off from its 63-day journey across Italy, and I could have sworn I just saw Victor Boot sitting in that audience, but I won't reflect on that until I know more. Anywho's, we really need Trump to do an address to the nation, to come out, I believe, and declare the Insurrection Act, to basically have the arrest of the seditious six, and of course the blatant targeted attack on the National Guard is more than enough. And after their announcement on across the world to disobey military orders in the USA, and if we could have Trump with Hegseth and Odie Gabbard. I listened to the great head of the Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes, today, and he was saying, the way to do this would be to basically, during the holidays, shut down all of the buildings in DC to do with intelligence, military, and the DOJ, and have military intelligence, which isn't CIA, which isn't NSA, come in and purge all of the traitors out. Basically, gather all the intelligence, send the people home, tell them, go home, await orders, and to actually have a full purge go on. And I think that's an incredible thing. It's sort of a human asset Doge operation, right? Where, Doge should just get rid of $350 million more of, I believe, bogus military contracts last week that nobody hears about. They try to say Doge doesn't exist anymore. It still does. It's just not given the full power that it needs. But with all of the information they have on the individuals, okay, if they can Doge the money, they can Doge the people. And what we really need is a Doge of the deep state. We need a full, look at all these people. Where the money comes from is it'll show them what they're into, all of their communications, everything, everybody. Right now, as this coup against America is hitting the high point, we need a Doge of the human assets, and to basically every single person needs to be basically investigated in this way in order to take them out of the government, the traders, okay? And this would be the human asset doge operation is what I'm calling it. If they can doge the money, they can doge the people. It's the exact same apparatus, just with different inputs. And I believe that that's what should happen. Rhodes, of course, he's as co-founder of the Oath Keepers, or the founder of the Oath Keepers, which he is getting up and going again. He did something like 5 years in prison, or at least four, over the 4 years over J6. And this all, again, Daniel Ratcliffe, okay, buried the intelligence report. He needs to get out of the CIA. With Ratcliffe, who's bought and paid for by Israel and AIPAC, bought for, paid for, okay, out of Texas, John Ratcliffe. Did I say Daniel? Sometimes I say Daniel, the actor. John Ratcliffe, our CIA director. Huge mistake that Trump put him back in. He needs to go, okay, because everything that he did back in after he had the Devin Nunes report, all of it, and he buried it as Director of National Intelligence. What did we get? We got J6, we got massive, we got Joe Biden, we got the COVID murder genocide, we got the death of J6ers and the imprisonment for years and years of innocent Americans. We got, of course, the migrant invasion and the bringing in a foreign military males in Tren de Aragua, and the setting up of the socialists and the Muslims across the country to do huge stealing and fraud, not only from the COVID money, but of our elections, and laying out the infrastructure of the communist and jihadi framework that is now going full bore. Now, Trump did, of course, finally, thankfully, do the Muslim Brotherhood, declaring Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization federally. That's amazing. That's fantastic. That could lead to the denaturalization and deportation of Mamdani. Okay, they both played nice and Freaky Friday and all of that. And Mamdani over the weekend said, no, Trump's still a fascist. It was just, friendly baloney PR meeting. And of course, then Trump goes and plays the card, as I was praying for and saying on this channel, of doing the federal Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization. And there's no denying, it's proof in the pudding, absolutely there. Him, Linda Sarsour, his mentor, Siraj Wahhaj, Huma Abedin, Barack Obama, for heck's sake, John Brennan, okay, that all these people in their super intense connections and funding with the Muslim Brotherhood should be either arrested, okay, investigated, arrested, and with Mamdani, deported, absolutely denaturalized. He's not a U.S. official citizen under this looking glass, okay? And the funding by the Muslim Brotherhood for him is very clear, as well as for his election. Very, very clear. So let's hope that the denaturalization process can happen for Mamdani immediately. Okay. And so as we look at what might come down over the weekend, I just want to remind everybody on Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday, fantastic, fantastic time. And it really establishes, again, Thanksgiving, I think one of the reasons I love it is along with Christmas and Easter and et cetera, is just it really brings and harkens back that America is a Christian country, and the situation of giving thanks and how it arose out of the start of America and the Pilgrims, and this giving thanks, okay, for survival and for making it through hard times. And for me, Charlie Kirk in his murder is poignant here because, of course, he was very, very good and convincing. And I hope I can link below a really great video of him describing how and why America is a Christian country, and how 9 of the 13 original, the colonies that fought in the Revolutionary War, that they required anybody that was going to be in office had to be Christian, that they had to be an avowed Christian, and that is the way this country is. The whole the appeal to God, the appeal to the Supreme Judge of the universe in the Declaration of Independence. Um, all of this is our Christian roots. And we're starting to see things in like Florida where you had several men, I believe, have received felony hate crime sentences for uh, interrupting Muslims in prayer on the street, eating bacon near them, saying Christ is Lord, and all of this. And not doing it, it's one thing to reclaim space, but this situation is Randy Fine put that law in based on anti-Semitism, right? And it's this whole beard, this whole facade of we're going to create, Israel wants to create across the USA all these anti-Semitism hate laws that come with, um, you know, uh, it's the same as London, it's the same as it happens everywhere, that just instantly turn into Islamophobia laws. And we're seeing it huge across the country. How huge this is, and of course, what's going down in Texas. And we have this great thing as well, where Trump has removed the temporary since 1991 protected status of the Somalis, and saying go after them in Minnesota. ICE deport them, right? And so we have billions. It's something like $300 billion that the Somalis have embezzled out of the U.S. coffers. It's enormous. It's crazy. They're talking about 300 billion. It's not 300 million. It's like, no, excuse me. Sorry, sorry. Retract. 1 billion, 1 billion, 1 billion of our U.S. taxpayer dollars connected with Somali fraud out of Minnesota specifically. I think reaching into Michigan as well. And what do we have is that money going in to put in. I think they got 38 election wins in this last election of Muslims into office. 38, okay, is funding all of these elections, which are, of course, huge ballot harvesting, huge election fraud, depending on illegal voters, all of it. Well, Trump has said, go get them, right? And at the time, there was a civil war in Somalia back in 1991, I believe. And that's when, the Ilhan Omar's family is connected to, multi huge, 100 years plus family of who were being attacked in the civil war because they held all the power, and they're slavers. They're still slavery in Somalia, and they were slavers historically throughout time. And she comes out and says there's no evidence that we're not funding Al Jabbab or whatever it's called, these terrorist organizations with the Muslim Brotherhood. We're not funding them. Yeah, they're funding them, and they're finding the evidence, and it's fantastic. And so we pray for the de-Muslimification of Minnesota. And that's not for your somehow a wonderful Muslim that does assimilate to U.S. society, because they have over years. You've had Iranians, you've had all kinds of people for years that did assimilate, but not now. And that's not the plan. The plan is caliphate, jihad, expansionism of of you know of the caliphate. So we'll see what goes down there, but it is a fantastic development. Okay, and so I think I'm going to be rounding it up here. We have a huge another call that needs to happen. Is Stephanie Miller is still in charge of personnel at the Army, and she is horrible. She is married to a huge defense and big pharma lobbyist, and this goes back to the COVID bioweapon, and and they benefited hugely, her family, from the funding of the bioweapon and the massive genocide it caused. And Stephanie Miller is still there in the Army dealing with personnel, and she needs to go immediately. Okay. Uh, Basically, she is trying to block the reinstatement of, I think it's hundreds of Army officers and infantry that were forced out of the army because they wouldn't take the shots, and only like 13 or so have gotten reinstated with back pay and getting their back to their full status that they had before. And she's blocking it. Okay, and so we need to get rid of her. This is really, really bad. And so I want to bring that to your attention and let you know. So I believe that we could be looking at some huge steps happening over the weekend, in the coming weeks, certainly between now and Christmas. This is a very poignant and intense time as we see, of course, the first attack after the Seditious Six call and James Comey's rise and shine and show the world what you're made of announcement. That these two National Guardsmen, we pray that they are alive and recovering. Strange that we get from the governor of West Virginia that they are dead. And we pray that's not true. So we really are praying that over the weekend we'll hear from Trump to talk to, it's more than 85%, the vast, vast majority of Americans, okay, that all the social media fights and all that baloney aside, uh, back Trump's plan, okay, back the shift to hemispheric defense, back the gutting of the deep state in this country, and are way more informed than you hear on X or all this baloney with social media. Trump needs to address them directly, and we pray that he will over the weekend. And I pray for all of us, okay, that we have a happy Thanksgiving in light of all of it. Of course, Christ is King, and we have to pray up hugely over Thanksgiving and just, ask for that full armor to protect you and your family. Have discussions with your family members, and don't be afraid to talk. It's so important during these times when we all get together that we can talk with civility and huge hearts and good intentions, but also with reality. Don't lose this opportunity to possibly raise someone's consciousness in your family or extended family, your fellowship, etc. And let's all, praise God for the blessings we have. Because in any moment, if you're watching this in this moment, you're hanging in there. You're hanging in there, right? And sometimes some days are like that. It's just moment by moment. How am I now? Okay, I'm still okay. And you just have to go that way sometimes, and pray that God strengthens you, protects you, protects this country, and of course the Western world, the entire world, all of humanity, breaking free from tyranny, breaking free from the bankster cabal that wants humanity, um, you know, uh, nearly dead. 500 million left of us is their goal, and they continue with that. With we saw with COP30, we know that Trump is going to be at the Doral in Florida next year is the G20. He can disinvite any countries he wants, and we should have Russia back in the G8 by then as well, hopefully within the next few weeks. So, whew, we're on the move here, Patriots, and we just have to believe and have faith, of course, in God, and also believe in the Trump administration that they can take. I just want to hear a clean, clear speech written by Stephen Miller, okay, that Trump does from the Oval Office to the American people over the Thanksgiving holidays, and to not be afraid and to start to speak straight. Speak straight. No, don't use the word hoax ever. Just speak straight about what domestic insurrection means, enemies, foreign and domestic, and let people know what's going on. Because MSM, you have control of the airways. You're in charge. You can take over the airways, Trump, and people can scream about it all they want afterwards. But once it comes out, yes, you'll have the lawfare. Yes, you'll have the mainstream media. Whatever, whatever. Doesn't matter, because the people will know what's going on and where you stand. So I want to put that out there to the White House. And I want to say to everybody, happy Thanksgiving. Aren't we so lucky, okay, that those pilgrims made that trip all those many centuries ago now, and toughed it out, made it through the winter. They already knew. It's interesting about the whole, what is it, Wampanoags and the Indians there in New England. Uh, one of the chiefs there was already known, had already gone to Europe. There's all kinds of strange history that we don't ever really hear about. But this incredible thing of creating America with all the foibles, all of the mistakes, all of the awful things that happen along the way, is all the incredible things that happen along the way, which is that a country was created with the most freedom, with liberty against tyrants at the center of our Constitution, and Christianity at the center, and basically creating power for the people that has never existed anywhere in the world. And so we pray for this country, its survival. It is a beacon of light for the world, and it must survive and thrive. So prayers are paramount. Thanks so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you found something valuable in this video and you want to give a little Thanksgiving tip to You Are Free TV, there's ways to do so below. I super appreciate it. You keep it going. It's only you. And then, of course, C60 Evo helps keep it going too. c60evo.com/YAFTV. Check out the sales. People who donate to the channel get 15% off, not in addition to the holiday sales, but to other products not included. You can apply that 15% code to people who donate to the channel. And I give away 2 bottles every month. And so this month is ending in about 4 days. And so if you donate to the channel to get that 15% code, or because you love You Are Free TV, you will also get entered into the giveaway, which is 2 bottles to 2 different people picked randomly. And it's not a huge pool, so you have a good chance. But what's fantastic is they're doing great holiday sales this year, and I so appreciate that because it is a great way to get products. And if you do it before the end of the month, it also helps You Are Free TV to be able to operate better and stronger next month. That's how it works with the sponsorship. So thanks so much. You are free. And remember, if you do this whole Black Friday holiday buying stuff, please support the people who are doing the work. Go to MyPillow. He's got incredible sales, those amazing, incredible suede, memory foam, furry, beautiful slippers that normally cost like $150 from like LL Bean or somewhere. $40. Okay, he's got some incredible sales. Like him, AJ, the 2-for-1 sale right now on supplements. Just give your money to the people and the smaller people. The people who support this channel, the people who support the channels that you love, give to those people in these sales that they're having. Don't waste your money on Amazon just for the free shipping. I know, believe me, God's watching. You'll that shipping money you put out to support the Patriots will come back to you in other ways. I promise. You will be rewarded by doing good, right? Doing good. So you are free. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope it's beautiful, good food, great people, great fellowship, and of course, God with you all the way. You are free, and I'll see you soon.